Yeah, it's about the bag with the triple single crew. We got Ronnie, Doc, Antonio, the real deal too. They coming and dropping knowledge, you know that they get to work. You know that triple single cover Bay Area sports. You know I'm coming hard, I don't feel like I'm in a hurry. Like number 30, I really got the range like Stephen Curry. Get a couple rings and
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Triple Single Crew. I'm your guy, the real deal, and I'm joined by, as always, Doc Antonio Martinez and Ronnie with some of that East Bay flavor. So what's going on, fellas? How you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm ready to get things rolling.
Ready to get it going, right? Yeah, man. Absolutely. Sorry about that, Doc. But yeah, definitely this week has been interesting, right? A lot of interesting things going on. And so for starters, I mean, started out with the pro day, and that same day, Alex Smith retired. So I just want to get into that a little bit today. But before I get into it too far, just want to let you guys know, make sure you subscribe and make sure you like the channel, make sure you leave us some comments, and we really love your support. So keep it coming. We appreciate it, and we see all of it. So I just want to get that out. And then, yeah, guys, I just want to get it going. I mean, what are your thoughts? Because I have mine on Alex. You know, it was kind of a strange journey, but ended up being a pretty solid career and an incredible story. So I'll start with you, Doc. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think, just thinking about Alex Smith retiring um, allows me to take a step back and just think about how this journey began for him. I think he comes out of San Diego, where he played with Reggie Bush, who was an all-time great there at USC. I believe they went to the
Felix High.
Yep, Felix High. Yep, Felix High. Then he went to Utah, right? He went to Utah, and I believe he was under Urban Myers, and he was just, he was a stud. I mean, he was a handsome, young man who just had a really likable personality. Played really well under Urban Meyer's system and really looked like he had a lot of the tools needed to be successful in the NFL. I'm not going to lie, when it was between him and Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers, I wasn't really leaning any specific way. I thought I was actually going to be pretty happy with either guy that we took, because it did seem like Alex was a lot more mobile than Aaron Rodgers. And I always have just had an appreciation for some mobility at the QB position.
Right.
Right. Let me just throw my promotion there. Justin Fields, number 3 overall pick. But going back to this specific conversation, with all due respect to Alex Smith, he didn't start off his career, quite well within our organization, but it's as we've had a lot more time to reflect, you realize it wasn't in his control, man. He was thrown into the fire. He was a part of a very dysfunctional organization that had offensive coordinators coming in and out every single damn year. I think his best year was with Nolan Turner, if I'm not mistaken. Is that the name? Nolan Turner?
Norv
Turner.
Norv Turner.
Norv, forgive me, I'm getting mistake with Mike Nolan. Norv Turner, right, who was also a head coach with the Chargers, I believe. And when he was our offensive coordinator, that's when Alex really started to flourish. Only for Norv, I believe, to get another coaching gig, and then leaving, that position vacant. And again, it was just a revolving door. And Alex Smith did what he could. And towards the end of his career as representing the red and gold, he did it amazingly. He even during the Super Bowl run when Kaepernick had taken his spot, he was such an amazing just presence in his media days, right? He was constantly being asked, "How do you feel about being replaced? How do you feel about not having a chance to play?" And he answered those questions so maturely and so eloquently that I'm always going to have a lot of love and appreciation for Alex Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are your thoughts? I mean, Ronnie, you're still pretty little, or if you were alive, right? So you're still really little in 2005. But so I'll just ask you, how did you feel watching the Alex Smith, probably that you grew up with, was maybe like more like KC Alex Smith. And then, with the surgeries and everything, I don't know if you saw that E60, right? Like I think most of us did. So just give me your thoughts.
Oh, yeah, not definitely. When Alex Smith was drafted in 2005, I was 2 years old. So just shows you how long ago that was. But, him in Kansas City, he was traded away after that Super Bowl run, I believe. You know, what makes it like, hurt a little bit more is that, my dad's a Raiders fan. So, when they always play the Chiefs, it's always going to be like,
right.
And, the Chiefs were like one of those lower teams, you know, having the number 1 pick the year he got traded, drafting Eric Fisher, and then getting Andy Reid. So it was like, you know, just to start building something. So, you know, just watching all those games, like, you know, me doing my research, you know, just watching his highlights and stuff. Going back to the San Francisco days, watching that divisional game, I believe it was versus the Saints,
Mhm.
you know, scoring like
Yeah.
3 touchdowns, like with a couple minutes left to go. And, you know, overall, just his Kansas City days were cool. You know, 2017, I believe, was his career year when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, and he was on the bench, you know, following him. We all know how he turned out. And then with the injury, you know, JJ Watt, you know, one of the best pass rushers that I've ever seen, you know, watching football. And just his whole recovery process, you know, was just crazy. 17 surgeries and, you know, possibly having his leg amputated. And after all that, it took him a year to come back, and you know, he became a NFL starter and he led his team to the playoff. Although he didn't play in that game, you know, the outcome might have been different and might have, who would have known. But, you know, just looking at his story, I truly believe that, you know, a lot of young, you know, quarterbacks or like just, you know, any athlete can be like, oh, if he come back from this, I can come back from anything too. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't say, you know, a Hall of Fame career, but he definitely had like a solid career and something that we'll definitely look back at for sure.
Yeah, you know, that's a great point. You know, sometimes you don't have to have a Hall of Fame career to still leave your mark. And I
Yep.
think that's kind of what I think about with Alex. I mean, you know, not only the comeback player of the year, but just to me, like you said, Doc, you know, to have that poise and that class to just say, you know what, I'm going to get my opportunity again, even if it's not in San Francisco anymore. But while I'm here, I'm still going to help this young guy out, and Colin Kaepernick, and then eventually Patrick Mahomes, which I don't know if you guys saw, you know, Pat Mahomes, great, had a great tweet out and just said, thank you. Same with Andy Reid, and just, you know, the class to the code, because that stuff does matter. I mean, look, Patrick Mahomes with Patrick Mahomes, even without Alex there, but you know, the speed at which somebody develops and understands certain things and then knows how to also treat others. I think that's the example that the vets set in that locker room. And so, I mean, look, Alex was thrown into one of the worst rosters I'd ever seen. I mean, think of these Jets rosters, Ronnie, and that's what Alex was thrown into in 2005. And then you give him 6 coordinators in 6 years. And somebody said, I think it was 7 in 7 years, if you really want to take it to that step. And then he had his head coach in 2008, Nolan, who was a horrible coach, basically questioned the guy's toughness when he had a 300-pound guy land on him from Seattle. And I can't remember. I think it was Rocky Bernard, somebody like that. I think that was his name. And the guy landed on his throwing shoulder, dislocated the shoulder. And Alex still tried to come back at the end of that season with a bad shoulder, throwing shoulder. And the coach was questioning his toughness. So to go from that to the mess that was before Harbaugh, then Harbaugh gets there, stable environment, incredible defense. And then all of a sudden, you know, Colin Kaepernick comes onto the scene, and then everything changes again. So he had like just a quick taste. It was like a year and a half after 6 years of just terrible.
Yeah.
And you know, just to go back to Doc's points, you know, he was a guy that to me, he was just always kind of persevering. And he had it easy in the beginning, you know, in college and all that stuff. And he was a really talented guy. And at that time, they were already thinking about, you know, dual threat quarterbacks, but it wasn't like it is today, right?
Yeah.
Like today, you know, it's almost a necessity. And so, you know, to go through that and then the surgeries and then come back, I mean, just again, pure class. And he does have some great statistics. So if you guys want to check that stuff out, I think CBS posted something about, you know, he's like top 10 quarterback rating in the playoffs or something like that. So he's got some weird, really cool top 10, top 15 lists that you wouldn't think of. But again, to me, he was a guy who was just a really solid quarterback, underappreciated in his time, underutilized. And I think if you gave Alex the stability he had with Andy Reid in 2016, 2017, that big year he could have had more years like that when he was younger. That's kind of what I'll remember. And again, just the toughness and the humility under fire. So, so that's kind of those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I also just want to give him a shout out, right? Because once he did start to get the supporting cast around him in San Francisco, he started, winning some big games. He started being able to
Yeah.
beat some of our division rivals, including the Seahawks, right? Which I think at the time with Hasselbeck and Sean Alexander, it's around that little bit of that time period where we're struggling to beat the Seahawks. You know what I mean? Like we had genuinely reached the bottom of the bottom within our
Mhm.
division. I think maybe the only team that continued to struggle even more than us a little bit was the Cardinals, but even they had a little bit of their run with Kurt Warner and
Mhm.
Fitzgerald. And so, right, I think Alex Smith was just a really great person to be leading our squad, even during the darkest of times. I know he got a lot of hate because as the quarterback, they just receive a lot of kind of the responsibility, but he handled it well. You know what I mean? He never turned against the fans, a la Jeff Kent, right? Who we know he was not the biggest fan of San Francisco, just the fan base. He
Right.
stuck it through, and he kept promising that we would figure it out and find a way. And it's unfortunate that when Cap replaced Alex, it was also because of another injury that he had just experienced. Right, he had been taken out. I don't recall what exactly the injury was, but that's just basically what opened the door for Cap. But there's a part of me, and I genuinely mean this. There's a part of me that when we entered the Super Bowl, I wanted Harbaugh to maybe find a way to maybe create a package where Alex Smith could be out there, because I still thought that he could have potentially at least maybe sustained a drive, or maybe just caused a little bit of that confusion, right, with just his different skill sets compared to Cap. I wish Harbaugh would have
Yep.
somehow found a way, because Alex was more than capable of playing in that game. He was more than
Yep.
capable of playing in that Super Bowl. Didn't happen, you know what I mean? And we know what the outcome of that Super Bowl was, and it's not because Alex didn't play, but there's a part of me that still wishes he could have gotten a drive, something, even if it would have been just the first
Yeah.
drive out of respect. I know it's the biggest game in the whole, the whole season at the time, but I don't know. There was always a part of me that wished I could have seen Alex take a snap during that Super
Yeah.
Bowl.
Yeah, and that's how good of a guy he was, that you always rooted for him, even though you knew the other guy was more electric at that time. We understood why that change was made to Cap, but even you bring that up, and I keep thinking of when we're inside the 5 with Frank there and stuff at the end of the game. I mean, you have 2 dual threat quarterbacks technically. I mean, Alex was mobile, and this is 2011, so he still has pretty much the mobility he had, coming in as a rookie or first few years. So it would have been interesting. Why, like imagine Shanahan with Cap and Alex trying to draw like some jet sweeps or something like that. Who knows? You get into the end zone there, but that creativity wasn't there yet, right?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, so that's a cool point on your part. But so yeah, as you all can tell, we have a lot of passion, obviously, about our current 49ers, our former 49ers, and we just wanted to take some time to celebrate the career of Alex Smith, who was a great 49er, and found a way to resurrect a career that we never thought was going to get resurrected. So
Yep.
just kudos to him all the way. And so I just want to thank you guys once again for joining us, and stay tuned for some more great content here from the Triple Single crew. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at TSC Bay Area. We love the support. Take care, everybody.
See you, everybody.